In this video, we're going to talk about release and epic burndowns, how important they are and how we can use those to give us some insight into how things are going. So we're going to learn about what a release and epic burndown are, how to read these burndown reports, and how to use these reports for forecasting. Now here we're going to show an example of a release burndown, but keep in mind that a release is version, essentially, right? It's a version that's been deployed. An epic is actually also a container of work, right? So we remember back to our backlog. A release is generally larger than an epic. So an epic would be a large story that would span multiple sprints, but the same concepts apply. And so when you're looking at an epic burndown report, it's going to be the same as a release burndown report, but probably smaller, all right? But it'll allow you to project when that epic might be completed. But let's take a look at this release burndown, all right? And I want to familiarize you with the different elements of this report. So first of all, what you're seeing in the first column there is your estimate of the work that's contained within this version, which will eventually be your release. You can see it has 184 points. Now, the thing that's interesting about this report in this specific example is that we have 28% of the work that's unestimated. That means it's hidden, all right? So there's 28% of the issues that are contained within here that do not have story point estimates, which means that your original scope is actually larger than the 184, but we don't have that work sized, which means that that would be very important to do right away, would be to go and make sure that all of the work is sized so that it's all contained within your forecast. As we said before, that 184 points represents your original scope. And so that medium blue bar represents the original scope of the version at the time of creation. The dark blue in the example here, plus 32 points from sprint 2, represents new scope. So work that was added in this iteration to this version and is now part of this release. You can see that the green bar represents work that's been completed. So in sprint 2, we finished 46 points of original scope and added 32 points that were new. We still have 128 points of original scope remaining. Now, given this, you can see that we are starting to establish a velocity now. We know that this team's velocity is 45 points per sprint, and based on, you can see the dashed line and where we are today, we know that we have 50 story points remaining in the scope of this version. So that tells us that we've got just over a sprint worth of work, so essentially 2 sprints remaining. If your 2 sprints are 2 weeks each, then you can see that we have essentially 1 month remaining before this version will be available for release. And that gives you the ability to forecast. Okay, in the next video, we're going to talk about version and epic reports.